What's up, YouTube? ODST General back again, and we've got another Operation Trebuchet news update. So, guys, I want to try and record this again. It's like 2:14 in the morning. I was going to try and go to bed early tonight, but I kept trying to record this earlier, and every time I did, I kept getting interrupted. So here we are again. To start us off, we have a really sweet new sniper rifle, the SRS-99E. This is based off some Halo Reach concept art that Vespade's been working on. It takes aspects of the 99C, which is actually the Reach sniper rifle, and the 99D, which is the previous Halo game sniper rifle, and it kind of merges those aspects together. Now, Vespade can describe this thing a whole lot better since he's the one working on it, so I want to let him take over for just a moment here, and I'll be right back with you guys.
For my rifle, which I'm sure you can tell, though I did incorporate a couple of different things into the model to make it a little bit more akin to the SRS-99D, including the change to the barrel here. You'll notice that's relatively different than the original 99C style, and instead it actually inherits a lot more from the 99D. As far as the scope goes, I decided to get a little bit creative. It's actually not just one scope, it's two scopes. So I'm sure any, Halo fan knows that the original scope has this lovely thing going on here, not really anything going on over here, and then it has a large version of this screen that you can see on the left. Basically what I've done is I've decided that this left side, as opposed to being the whole thing, that interesting SRS style scope, it's actually going to have a rangefinder type deal on this side, and then on this side you'll have your standard mil-dot style sniper scope or hunting scope, whatever. So you'll be able to switch between those two. They'll have different ranging capabilities, so maybe you could use the left side as a rangefinder to find out how far your target is, and then you'd switch over to the right side so that you can actually use the mil-dots to, raise your rifle to figure out just how high you need to aim, and then you could switch back over to the left one to get a maybe thermals or night vision, and then leave the right one just as a standard regular mil-dot sight with an attached rangefinder type deal. So that's kind of the concept behind that. It's also been modified to actually fit on Picatinny rails. So the clamp is a little bit different, but looks realistic enough to probably work. Because 408 actually already exists in Arma 3, I plan on sticking as close to the Arma 3 408 as possible. I'm really not entirely certain how well that will be balanced with the existing armor sets, uniforms, helmets, etc. from the Insurrection or the UNSC, and how that would be balanced. So it may need some adjustments, but that will be the baseline, the existing 408, or the M200, I want to say, the Intervention. That also comes with two Picatinny rails on the front. As to whether or not those will actually be usable, I'm unsure yet, because when I did try putting on the flashlight, it clipped with the bipod a little bit. So either I'll need to find a way to lower the bipod just a hair, or I'll just make it so that there's certain attachments that can fit there without clipping with the rest of the stuff. As you can see, obviously it does have a bipod that's going on here, so that'll be built in with the rifle, just like the SRS-99C and 99D already have. The magazine is actually going to be entirely separate from the model. It's going to be done using proxies, much like a lot of the existing rifles in Arma 3. For example, the HK series, they run the Stanag mags, but they also have the Beta C mag style magazines for it. So that's the same concept here. It'll be using the proxies as opposed to a hard modeled magazine. That way you can have different magazine textures based on the different magazine types. So in the instance that you had APF SDS as opposed to HVAP or HEDP, you could mark the magazine, maybe have a different color on the bottom here to indicate that it is a different type of ammunition. That way, you could just check when you're running, with a sniper, you can make sure, they're not running HEDP or some crazy shit like that, are they? And then there you go. You're good. It's good. It's kind of difficult to get away with that when there's a giant red flag on it. Past that, not a whole lot of crazy features. You've got your safety, your trigger. The bolt will come back here. You'll chamber your round up into there. It'll eject the old round, probably out the right as opposed to the left, and you'll be golden. It does have the iron sights, I think I mentioned, that go through the Picatinny rail. And then, I mean, from there, the only other thing that I have that I added was the suppressor. So I'm sure everyone is familiar with the SRS 99D or 99C Pringles can style suppressor. Here we strayed away from that. I strayed away from that and decided to go with a more M110 based suppressor. So I'll go ahead and grab the M110. So the M110 suppressor has like this little clip here, and basically it slides over the barrel like this, and then you just drop in this little tab, and the tab slides through the suppressor and basically latches the suppressor to the actual rifle. So you'll see I have a couple of slots cut into the barrel here for just that purpose. So you unscrew the muzzle brake. If this were like an actual rifle, you just unscrew it, and then the suppressor would come on, and then this would drop into that same position there. And now you have your suppressed version of the SRS 99E. That's more or less it. It doesn't really have anything else crazy special about it. It's a little bit different than either of the other ones, obviously, because it has a custom suppressor. It's chambered in a totally different ammunition type. The scope is 100% different in terms of functionality. It really wasn't made to be an SRS. It was made to be a sniper that looked like an SRS and also held different functions. So the SRS is anti-material. This is more anti-infantry.
All right. So, yeah, that's the SRS 99E. So we're going to go ahead and keep moving on. We got some more weapons to cover, more stuff to talk about. That brings us on over to the Mark 50 Sidekick. Of course, this is the new pistol from Halo Infinite. Burgess is working on this thing. To be honest, I'm not a huge fan of this pistol, but since he's working on it for the CMA, it fits really well. CMA typically uses older equipment that the UNSC, uses the more advanced stuff, the more cutting edge stuff. So since this thing does look more like a modern day pistol, I would say that fits the idea of the CMA really well. So I think it's an excellent choice for that faction. Of course, the innies will also probably see this added to their ranks and bolster their weapon variety to help distinguish them from the UNSC. So a nice and welcome addition, even though I'm not a huge fan of the pistol itself. I think that's a great choice. Then that brings us on over to vehicles. So we're going to shift gears here, and we're going to head on over to Marstruck, take a quick look at his boat. Not much to say about it. He's working on the turret. We had kind of talked about him actually starting on this some time ago. He's finally getting around to it. He's encountered a few issues with it, but for the most part, it sounds like he's got things mostly under control at this point. So we see the initial implementation of the standard LAAT turret, I think. I think that's what it's called. It's the light reconnaissance anti-air turret or whatever. But yeah, pretty cool standard Warthog turret on there. Pretty neat. Not much else to say. So, keep on rolling here. We're going to go on over back to Burgess. That brings us to the Halo concept tank. Now, if you guys aren't familiar, Halo at one point in time was supposed to be an RTS. Way back before Halo came under Microsoft, this was some concept art that was shown with a very old version of Master Chief. This tank was shown in that image. You guys will actually see that image here too. So this will also be a CMA faction tank. I forget what they're going to go with for the name on it. It doesn't really matter. The point is, it's cool. It's concept art stuff. We've gotten a lot of stuff from the games already, so we're kind of filling those roles and stuff with concepts. I think that's fine. I think this is a great choice for that. Once again, it's very early block out, and unfortunately, a lot of these bigger, more complex projects we haven't really seen come to fruition with Burgess. I've got my fingers crossed. I'd love to see this thing get finished. I'm actually really more excited about this than the pistol because it's just a cool tank. I think, regardless, I actually like this thing. And I don't think it's just a good fit. I like it and think it's a good fit. We also see a old concept, and maybe not much reason to show this off. This was the same tank that they kind of had, a little bit different looking, but it was created for the mod. It never got released. I just thought that was kind of cool. I wanted to show it off. And yeah, we're going to go ahead, keep rolling. That brings us up into the air. As far as the air goes, we've got Oshin working on the Saber. We showed this off previously, but haven't seen it for a couple weeks. This version here, still no materials, still no textures, but it flies, it fires rockets, it's got working landing gear. It looks really awesome as a fixed-wing fighter, which is, of course, something we've been lacking for Operation Trebuchet, and a lot of people have been asking for literal years. So I think this is fantastic. It's a nice addition. You know, we were going to have the Falcon, but by the Falcon, I mean the Halo Wars concept art, not the actual rotary Falcon that we got from Reach. But the Falcon fixed-wing, that never got finished. So I think the Saber is a great choice. Of course, it was actually in-game. You got to see it act as a fixed-wing fighter, so this is wonderful. And yeah, pretty excited about that. Well, the Halberd Destroyer. The Halberd hasn't really seen too much change since last week. What it has seen is some additional detailing. The armor on the front's been plated, I guess you could say, so it's got some additional detailing there, some additional detailing on the engines. A lot of work all over it, so I've got some pictures from various angles for you guys here. Definitely still excited about that. That's probably one of my favorite ship classes in Halo, if I do say so. That brings us on over to First Contact. Not much to say here. The Sentinel is going into Substance Painter, so hopefully before too long we should have some materials and textures applied to the Sentinel, and then it's ready to be configured, presumably as a drone, so hopefully we won't see this in the too distant future, but it's hard to say exactly, depending on what they want to do as far as that goes, and of course weapons and stuff need to be set up, and that's probably going to be the most complex part, is getting the Sentinel beams and stuff like that to actually work. Alright, so that brings us on over to community content, and we have the Flood. So the Flood are a very ambitious project indeed. Now, when I initially talked about the Flood, I said they were going to be pretty ambitious. I said they were going to be tough. And what Rabid Ducksauce wants to do with the Flood is even more ambitious than I initially realized. So he wants to actually have it so that the Flood spores, or whatever, the little Flood balls, when shot, will spawn infection forms. The infection forms themselves will be able to attach to a player, and depending on the scenario settings, either the human will turn into a Flood and keep control and then be a Flood that's on a different faction, or the human will die and an AI will take control of them. Both of which I think are great, fantastic things. Then up from there we have the pure forms and the juggernauts. Both would need custom skeletons, custom animations. So those are probably the furthest off, I would imagine. He wants to have a variant of the Juggernaut that has the spores attached to it that you can shoot. So when you're shooting the Juggernaut, you're also spawning infection forms that are going to potentially turn you or your friends into Flood. Fantastic. Of course, combat forms themselves, the standard human and presumably elite combat forms, going to be insane. Going to be crazy. I dig it. What else? So he also wants to have a green miasma of Flood spores that's in there, and you can change the size through a editor. You know, you can place an Eden editor or Zeus. Anybody inside that area without CBRN would turn into a Flood infection, or not Flood infection form, but a Flood combat form. And yeah, just all sorts of crazy stuff. So many different things. Flood biomass, like random Flood biomasses that you can place on the map and stuff. Some of this he expects to have done by the end of the year, so it's very ambitious, very hopeful. Don't know if it's going to be possible to actually see this or how much he'll actually get done, but man, I hope he does finish it, because that's really exciting stuff. And guys, that is everything for this week. I tried to rush it a little bit more. This video is unfortunately going to be a little bit late regardless, because I didn't get this recorded when I wanted it to be. But, like always guys, I want to know what you were most excited for from today's video. What you'd like to see the most in the future. And, of course, take it easy. I'll see you in the next one.